Okay. So you know how we always talking about how to like get the most out of research?
Yeah.
Well, today we're kind of looking at this blade about whether researchers should actually be like giving advice in their research papers.
Hmm. Interesting.
Like, should they be telling us what to do with their findings, or should they just like stick to the data,
Oh, that's juicy.
right?
I like where this is going.
And so it's a pretty like heated debate actually,
Yeah.
and we want to kind of like unpack all the different sides of it.
Come in.
We are focusing on this article that's called "Staying Within One's Data to Make Recommendations for Practice in Primary Educational Research Journals."
Okay.
It's by Sharon Vaughn and Lynn S. Fuchs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this article was actually like a response
Okay.
to another group of researchers, so it's kind of like we're getting to listen in
I like it.
on this
Yeah.
on this argument.
Cool.
So back in 2013,
Okay.
Robinson and his colleagues, they kind of threw out this pretty big idea.
Okay, what did they say?
They basically said that when researchers, publish their first round of findings from a study, their primary study,
Right. The initial research.
Yeah.
Ah.
they said they should really just stick to reporting what their data shows.
Okay, so no opinions.
Well, not quite, no opinions, but they were saying researchers, they often jump to conclusions
Uh-huh.
and start giving all this practical advice.
Right.
Like, hey, teachers, you should do this, or policymakers, you should change that.
Yeah.
But Robinson's group's like, hold on,
Yeah.
maybe those kinds of recommendations
Okay.
don't really belong in these initial research papers.
Interesting.
So their big proposal was pretty radical.
Like what?
They basically said, let's get rid of all practical recommendations
Mm.
from primary research journals.
Wow. Okay. They went there.
They did.
That's a bold move.
It is, right?
Okay.
These are the journals where new research gets published for the first time. Uh-huh.
And they were saying like this is not the place
Okay.
to be giving advice
Yeah,
on how to use the findings or like speculating about policy.
right.
It's too early.
Gotcha. So where did they think these practical recommendations should go then?
They actually thought that like newsletters,
Mhm.
like one specifically for teachers or, principals
Mm-hmm.
would be a better fit.
Okay.
Or they thought maybe there should be like separate journals that are all
Mhm.
about like the practical side of things.
Okay, so translating research into actionable steps for the classroom.
Yes.
Gotcha. So, I can see where they're coming from. You don't want people just, running off with preliminary findings and making big decisions based on one study.
That's exactly their point.
Okay, so what was the biggest worry they had? What were they most concerned about?
Well, their main thing was that researchers, they often like overextend their findings.
Okay.
They assume that what worked in their like very specific study
Right.
is automatically going to work for everyone everywhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
or they'll make these huge generalizations
Okay.
based on like a tiny sample size
Mm.
or like a super specific research design.
Uh-huh.
And they were worried that this could lead to recommendations that just aren't supported by the evidence.
Makes sense. And that could be misleading.
Yeah, and even harmful.
Totally.
Like imagine a study that's done with, a small group of high schoolers in California,
Right.
and then suddenly people are saying, "Oh, this is how we should be teaching all elementary school kids in like rural Montana."
Yeah, that's a big leap.
Right.
Okay, so that's Robinson and his crew.
Yeah.
Now, Vaughn and Fuchs, they had some thoughts on all this.
They did. They actually agreed
Okay.
with the basic idea
Hmm.
of, researchers needing to stay grounded in their data.
So they're on board with being cautious and not jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, they really emphasize that researchers need to be upfront about the limitations of their studies.
Mm.
Like how generalizable are the findings really?
Right, how widely can we apply these results?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how long might those effects actually last?
The durability question.
Yeah, like just because something worked for, 6 weeks in a lab setting
Right.
doesn't mean it's going to have the same impact over an entire semester in a real classroom.
Totally. But they had some other points, too.
They did.
They weren't just echoing Robinson's ideas.
No, they actually brought up a really interesting point.
Okay.
From their own experience
Uh-huh.
as researchers and authors,
Yeah.
they said that sometimes the editors of journals
Okay.
and even the reviewers,
Mm-hmm.
the ones who decide if a study is good enough to be published,
Yeah.
they actually pressure authors to make like bigger claims
Hmm.
and to really play up the practical applications of their work.
Interesting.
Like they're almost encouraging researchers to like oversell their findings.
So it's like there's this pressure to make the research seem like really impactful and relevant, even if the data doesn't quite support that level of enthusiasm.
Yeah, and Von and Fuchs were like, hey, this is kind of creating a weird dynamic where we're telling researchers to be cautious,
Right.
but then also kind of nudging them to make bolder claims.
So it's like a mixed message.
Yeah.
And they also pointed out that like researchers themselves aren't always like these perfectly objective beings.
Love.
They have their own reasons for maybe wanting to push their findings a little further.
Right, like they might be really passionate about a certain theory or approach.
Sure.
And if their study like confirms their beliefs,
Yeah.
they might get a little carried away.
Okay. Understandable.
And then there's like the whole academic pressure thing.
Uh-huh. Publish or perish, right?
Yeah.
You got to get your name out there.
If your research seems like really impactful and it gets cited by other researchers,
That's good for your career.
it totally is.
Makes you look credible.
And it helps you get more funding.
Oh, yeah. That's huge.
Right, because if you can show that your intervention is like super effective,
Uh-huh.
then you're more likely to get more grants to do more research.
Money follows the results.
It does.
Okay. And Vaughn and Fuchs, they even pointed out that some researchers might actually have like a financial stake in their interventions becoming like widely adopted.
Right.
Like if they develop a program and then it gets used in schools all over, that could be profitable.
Yeah, and sometimes education journals, they don't even require researchers to disclose those kinds of conflicts of interest.
That's a little worrying.
So with all these different pressures,
Mm-hmm.
it's not hard to see why a researcher might be tempted to interpret their findings a little more broadly
To put a positive spin on things.
than the data might actually support.
Okay, so given all that, it sounds like Vaughn and Fuchs saw some value in Robinson's proposal.
They were cautiously optimistic
Okay.
that if journals had like clearer guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
it might lead to fewer recommendations
Yeah.
that are just like premature or unsupported,
Okay.
or even like flat out misleading.
Yeah, so they agreed that research findings should be presented accurately and fairly.
Yes.
Connections to previous research should be like balanced.
Not overwhelming.
Right. And any implications for practice should really stay within the bounds of what the study actually found
Yeah.
and the specific group of people that were studied.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they're on board with the goal of making research more rigorous,
Yeah.
but they had some specific concerns
Yes.
and some ideas for how to tweak the proposal.
Exactly.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Right, because they weren't just saying, yeah, let's do exactly what Robinson said.
Uh-huh.
They had their own perspective.
Okay, so let's dig into that.
Okay.
What was their first main point of disagreement?
Well, one of the big things was this idea of a total ban
Okay.
on any practical recommendations.
Right, like Robinson's group was saying, no practical advice in primary research journals, period.
Yeah. But Vaughn and Fuchs, they argued that there are certain types of studies that are so strong,
Okay.
so well designed,
Yeah.
that they can actually provide a solid basis for making practical suggestions.
So they're saying there are exceptions to the rule.
Yes.
Okay, what kind of studies are we talking about here?
Well, they specifically pointed to what are called randomized controlled trials.
Okay, RCTs.
Yes,
These are like the gold standard in research.
they are.
Right.
And they said that, like, especially large-scale RCTs
Okay.
with lots of participants from diverse backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
where they make sure the intervention is implemented really well.
They use the term fidelity of implementation,
Yes,
meaning like they're really careful to make sure everyone's doing the intervention the same way.
exactly.
Okay.
And then they use, like, really sophisticated statistical methods.
Right, to analyze the data.
Yeah.
So these are studies that are like really robust in their design and execution.
Yes.
Okay.
And Vaughn and Fuchs argued that these kinds of studies, which often take a ton of time and money to do,
Right.
can actually produce strong enough evidence
Okay.
to justify some careful practical suggestions.
So they're saying like if you have really solid proof that something works,
Yeah.
maybe it's okay to suggest how that knowledge could be used.
Especially in fields where there's a desperate need for, like, evidence-based practices.
Okay.
They were particularly concerned about students who are struggling.
Uh-huh. Like students with learning disabilities or autism.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they said in those cases,
Yeah.
solid research findings can help to fight against these, like, fads or ineffective approaches.
That makes sense. Like if you have strong evidence that something is helping a group of students who are facing real challenges, it seems almost counterproductive to prevent researchers from suggesting how that knowledge might be used.
Right, like we need all the help we can get.
Totally.
And they specifically said that like district research and evaluation offices.
Okay, the folks who work within school systems to like evaluate research.
Yeah, they said those offices should be a key audience
Okay.
for these kinds of practical recommendations
Uh-huh.
because they have the expertise to really assess the evidence.
Right.
And then they also said that teachers
Yeah.
could be encouraged
Okay.
to like take these potential practices to their district research office.
Gotcha. So it's not like every teacher should just read a study and then immediately implement it in their classroom.
Well,
It's more like a system where those recommendations are like vetted and carefully considered.
yes.
Okay, I like that. And this directly challenged Robinson's view that findings from primary research are always speculative.
It did. Vaughn and Fuchs were like, no,
Uh-huh.
we don't agree with that at all.
Especially when it comes to these really rigorous studies.
Really?
They're saying like, look, we put so much effort into designing these studies carefully, controlling for variables,
Yeah.
analyzing the data properly.
And we know our studies inside and out.
Right.
We know the participants.
Yeah.
We know the intervention. We know the context.
So we're actually in a really good position
Yeah.
to suggest appropriate practical implications.
As long as we acknowledge the limitations, of course.
Of course.
Because every study has limitations.
Always.
But yeah, they really pushed back against this idea that all primary research is just speculation.
Okay, so that's their first big point.
Yeah.
Allow practical recommendations from really high quality studies. What was their second main point?
Their second point was all about who should be responsible
Okay.
for interpreting research
Uh-huh.
and turning it into something that's useful for practice.
Okay, so Robinson's group was saying, like, let's rely more on these big reviews or syntheses of multiple studies and also publications that are, like, specifically aimed at practitioners.
Right.
Yeah.
And Vaughn and Fuchs, they agreed that those resources are valuable,
Uh-huh.
but they had some reservations,
Okay,
especially when it comes to interventions for students who are struggling.
gotcha. What were they worried about?
Well, their main concern was that
Yeah.
instead of overinterpreting the results of one study,
Right.
we might end up misinterpreting the results of multiple studies.
Mm-hmm. How so?
Well, they pointed out that a lot of these syntheses,
Mm-hmm.
even ones that they themselves have written,
Okay.
often cover pretty broad topics,
Like what?
like improving reading comprehension
Okay.
or math problem solving.
Right. Big umbrella topics.
Yeah, and that means they're looking at a whole bunch of different studies
Mm-hmm.
with different teaching methods and interventions.
Yeah.
And they said that makes it really hard to come up with clear, specific recommendations for practice
I could see that.
compared to like a really focused study on just one approach.
Yeah, it's like trying to make a recipe from like a whole shelf full of different cookbooks.
Exactly. There's just too much information.
Right. So they're saying syntheses can be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to be focused.
Yeah.
Like they should really hone in on one specific teaching method or intervention.
Yeah.
And then look at how well it works
Uh-huh.
across different settings and different groups of students.
That's how we can really understand if it's generalizable.
Right. Because context matters.
It does.
Okay, what about the idea of like shifting the responsibility for interpreting research to newsletters and those practitioner-focused journals?
No, they weren't fans of that.
Okay.
They were actually pretty worried about that
Uh-huh. Why?
because those types of publications,
Right.
they often have like less rigorous peer review processes.
Compared to the primary research journals.
Yes.
Okay.
And they were concerned that this could increase the risk of research being misinterpreted,
Uh-huh.
especially by people who might not have a lot of background in research methods
Right.
or who might have like their own agendas that they're trying to push.
So they're worried that the information could get distorted.
Yeah. And they even pointed out that like Robinson and his colleagues,
Uh-huh.
they actually acknowledged this potential issue themselves.
Okay, so where did they think the responsibility should lie then?
They said that it should stay with the editors
Okay.
of both the primary research journals
Uh-huh.
and the journals that publish the syntheses.
Gotcha. So the editors should be the ones making sure that practice conclusions are appropriate and justified.
Exactly.
Okay, so their focus is really on maintaining that rigor and accountability
Yes.
throughout the whole process of
Uh-huh.
research and interpretation,
Right.
rather than just saying, okay, let's just move the discussion of practice somewhere else.
Yeah, that was their main point.
Gotcha. And they had a few other interesting thoughts too, right?
They did. They reminded us
Okay.
that good research practice already involves connecting your findings
Yeah.
to previous work
Right.
and being clear about the limitations of your own study.
So that should already be happening.
It should, and they said maybe editors should just like really emphasize this
Okay.
and make sure that researchers are doing it thoroughly. And then they also brought up this kind of messy reality,
Uh-huh.
which is that
Yeah.
the line between primary research journals
Okay.
and journals that focus on practice
Mhm.
is really blurry.
Especially in education.
Yeah,
Also-
there are so many education journals out there.
Yeah, they mentioned that there are over 1,000 indexed by Eric.
It's a lot,
Right.
and it's not always clear
Yeah.
which ones are for original research
Uh-huh.
and which ones are more about like practical application.
So trying to separate those two completely is really difficult.
It is, yeah.
Okay. And one last thing, they talked about this common concern about studies that use college students as
Mhm.
participants
Yeah.
and then try to generalize those findings to other age groups.
Right, like saying, oh, this worked for these 19-year-olds, so it must work for kindergartners too.
Right, which is obviously a big leap.
It is,
Yeah.
and they acknowledge that that's a valid concern,
Uh-huh.
but they also pointed out that
Yeah.
lots of studies do use large representative samples
Sure.
that are relevant to the research question.
Okay.
And in those cases,
Mhm.
they felt like it was reasonable to make practical recommendations,
Yeah.
but only for people in settings
Yeah.
that are similar to the ones in the study.
So stay within the boundaries of your data.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So to sum it all up,
Okay.
we've been exploring this really interesting debate
Uh-huh.
about whether researchers should give practical advice in their primary research papers.
Right. Should they tell us what to do with their findings?
Yeah, and Robinson and his colleagues, they raised some really valid concerns
Uh-huh.
about researchers going beyond their data
Yeah, getting a little too enthusiastic.
and making recommendations that might not be warranted.
Right.
And then Vaughn and Fuchs, they came in
Yeah.
and they agreed on the need for rigor
Mm-hmm.
and careful interpretation,
Right.
but they offered these really crucial refinements to the original proposal.
Yeah, they weren't just saying yes or no. They were like, okay, let's get nuanced here.
They were.
And their central argument boils down to this.
Okay.
The quality of the research
Uh-huh.
is more important
Very
than where it's published.
interesting.
Like if a study is really well designed,
Uh-huh.
if it's internally valid,
Yeah.
if it's got strong statistical validity,
Okay.
then it's okay for the researchers to suggest some potential applications,
Yeah.
as long as they do it cautiously
Right.
and tie those suggestions to the
Uh-huh.
specific findings and limitations.
Their study.
Exactly.
And they said that including these recommendations
Yeah.
alongside the research itself
Uh-huh.
actually allows the education community
Right.
to engage with it more effectively
Okay.
and to evaluate the claims
Yeah.
based on the strength of the evidence.
Makes sense.
So it's all about transparency
Uh-huh.
and giving people the information they need to make informed decisions.
Okay. I like that.
So here's a final thought for you. We know there's a ton of educational research out there,
Yeah. Tons.
and it varies in quality,
Uh-huh.
and it's published in all these different places.
Right. Journals, newsletters,
Yeah.
books, blogs.
So how do you, as someone who is committed to
Yeah.
understanding knowledge deeply,
Mm-hmm.
how do you navigate all of that
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what to apply in your own practice?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
How do we sort through all the noise
Yeah.
and find the signal?
And figure out what's actually worth paying attention to.
Right. What's actually going to make a difference for students?
That's a challenge for all of us.
Yeah, food for thought.
It is. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a great discussion.
I'm glad we could dive into this.
Me too.
It's been a good one.